The moment Earth's signals went silent, the galaxy held its breath. The Varix, the Threxian flagship, was the first to respond. Its sleek hull cut through the void of space as it moved toward Earth at maximum speed. Commander Joran Thrask stood in the bridge, his 4 compound eyes reflecting the dim glow of the consoles in front of him. His antennae twitched nervously. As the most logical species in the galaxy, the Threxians were unaccustomed to feeling unease, yet something about this event gnawed at him. "We're approaching Earth," announced Lieutenant Tharvik, his voice buzzing slightly from the synthetic accent. Still no signals. No response from the planetary defense grid. "Keep scanning," Thrask ordered, his voice tight. "There has to be an explanation. A blackout, a solar storm, something." But the silence persisted. The usual hum of electromagnetic activity, the transmissions from human satellites, the chatter from their deep space probes, the routine signals from Earth's many colonies was simply gone. It was as if the entire planet had fallen off the galactic grid. The silence was absolute, suffocating in its intensity. As the Varix moved closer, Thrask's anxiety deepened. The last time Earth had gone silent, it was for only a few hours during a routine repair of one of their deep space beacons. That had been nothing. But this time was different. This time, it had been nearly 4 days, and there was no sign of any recovery. On the surface of Earth, everything appeared normal. The oceans rolled, the weather patterns shifted predictably, and animals continued their cycles. The planet was alive, yet it felt abandoned. A vast emptiness hung in the air. No human was broadcasting. No communications were transmitted. Earth had been the busiest hub in the galaxy for centuries, yet now it was nothing more than a dead rock in space. Thrask paced the bridge, his legs clicking softly against the metal floor. He had faced danger, war, and intrigue before, but this was different. This felt unnatural. As a race of tacticians and analysts, the Threxians prided themselves on their ability to predict, to read every situation. But this, they could not predict. "We should send a probe," said Tharvik. "Something with deeper scanning capabilities. We might be missing something." Thrask paused, his antennae flicking as he considered the suggestion. "Agreed. Prepare the launch bay." The probe was deployed minutes later, a sleek, silent craft that descended through the atmosphere, its sensors sweeping over the land below. It was supposed to be a simple reconnaissance mission, but as it skimmed the Earth's surface, it encountered something strange, an overwhelming sense of stillness. And then the unexpected happened. The probe's systems began to malfunction, its energy sources flickering as if caught in a gravitational pull they couldn't identify. The last signal from the craft was a fragmented report, filled with static. "Where? Cannot. No unable." The transmission ended abruptly. Thrask clenched his mandibles. Something was terribly wrong, and it was only just beginning. The atmosphere on the Varix grew thick with tension as the fragmented transmission from the probe cut off. Commander Joran Thrask stood still for a moment, processing the static-filled words. His mind raced. This was not just a technical failure. The probe hadn't just lost contact, it had been interfered with. "Send a recovery team," Thrask ordered, his voice low but steady. "We need answers. Now." The crew aboard the Varix scrambled to execute his commands. A small team of Threxian engineers, armed with specialized equipment to repair and interface with alien technologies, prepared to descend to Earth's surface. Thrask had expected the worst, but nothing could have prepared him for the unsettling feeling that washed over him as he gazed at the blue planet on the monitor. Earth had always been a hub of galactic activity, buzzing with life. Now it felt like an ominous void. The recovery ship, the Drathir, descended into the Earth's atmosphere with its cloaking shields engaged. Lieutenant Tharvik's voice broke through the silence in the bridge once more. "Commander, we've cleared Earth's orbit and are entering the lower atmosphere. No resistance, no signs of human activity on the ground." Thrask watched the data feed intently, his mind racing through scenarios. If Earth was under attack, there should have been a struggle, signs of conflict, shattered cities, maybe even defensive measures being activated. But there was nothing. Earth was, on the surface, untouched. The Drather touched down in a remote location on Earth, far from any major city. The crew disembarked, stepping cautiously into the thick, humid air. The planet felt foreign in its stillness. The once vibrant soundscape of Earth, the hum of distant engines, the chatter of humans, was absent. Instead, there was only the sound of nature. Birds chirping in the distance, the rustle of wind through the trees, the low buzz of insects. "Check the sensors," Thrask ordered, his voice cool but commanding. "I want everything on this planet scanned, no exceptions." Minutes passed, and the engineers scoured the area. But everything appeared normal, too normal. The vegetation was healthy, the soil rich, the sky clear of any signs of atmospheric disturbance. No signs of human life or infrastructure. No destroyed cities, no abandoned settlements, no sign of anything human. "Commander, we found something," one of the engineers said over the comm. His voice was laced with a strange note of unease. Thrask's antennae flicked as he turned to the feed. On the screen was a small device, part of Earth's old communication infrastructure, a satellite dish, or perhaps a relay station, buried beneath the foliage. But it wasn't just the device that caught the engineer's attention. It was the signal emanating from it, a faint pulse, so weak that it could easily have been overlooked. "What is it?" Thrask demanded. "It's not human, sir," the engineer replied, "but it feels like a transmission, almost as if someone, or something, is still trying to reach out." The screen flickered, and for a brief moment, something strange appeared. An image, a shape, flickering in and out like a phantom. It was human, unmistakably human, but its outline seemed to shimmer, wavering between visibility and nothingness. And then, just as suddenly as it appeared, it vanished. Thrask's mandibles clicked together, the sound echoing in the tense silence. He turned to his crew, his eyes narrowing. "Prepare the ship," he said, his voice hard with a new sense of urgency. "Something is here, and we're not leaving until we figure out what it is." Back aboard the Varix, Commander Joran Thrask stood at the helm, his mind working through the new developments. That fleeting image, the strange, shifting human figure, unsettled him deeply. It wasn't just a technical glitch. Something had interfered with their sensors, something that felt alive. But how? And why? As the crew worked to analyze the strange pulse emanating from Earth, Thrask reached out to his counterparts in the Galactic Council. He couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just a simple disappearance. Earth's sudden silence had to be tied to something much deeper, something cosmic. Within hours, a holographic summit was convened, featuring representatives from multiple races: the Threxians, the Nari, the Exal, and even the Zal, a mysterious species known for their spiritual teachings and cryptic prophecies, all gathered in a tense virtual meeting. Thrask's face appeared on the central screen, his mandibles drawn tight. "I trust you've all felt the impact of Earth's disappearance." Thrask's voice echoed through the meeting room. The Xal representative, Admiral Ansel Voss, stood with an air of arrogance as he addressed the council. "I think we've all sensed it," Voss said, his tone laced with disdain. The disappearance of such a minor species would be of little consequence, if not for the fact that their technology was so widespread across the galaxy. Thrask held his ground. "Minor, you fail to understand the implications of this silence." Voss, "Earth has been the center of galactic communications for centuries. To lose them without any explanation, without any signs of destruction, is beyond our comprehension." The Nari delegate, Captain Istakora, interrupted, her voice smooth and calculated. "Commander Thrask is right. This isn't just a loss. The silence, it feels deliberate, as if Earth has chosen this moment. The humans knew something, A hologram of an ancient, weathered Zal historian flickered to life beside the screen. His deep, almost echoing voice filled the room. There are those among my people who have spoken of this moment for centuries. The Great Silence, they call it. A time when the dominant species of the galaxy, humanity, would step away from the galaxy, leaving it in uncertainty and chaos. The prophecy claims that when this moment arrives, no one will understand, not even the humans themselves. The room fell silent as the weight of the Zal's words settled over the council. For eons, the Zal had passed down tales of this mysterious event, stories that had long been dismissed as myth. Now, as the silence continued, the strange prophecy suddenly felt terrifyingly real. The Great Silence, Thrask murmured to himself. But why now? Why Earth? Why are they gone? Admiral Voss crossed his arms. If this is true, we need to know more. We cannot afford to let a species with such power disappear without understanding the reason. We must send an envoy to Earth. The Zal historian's hologram flickered again, a faint, knowing smile crossing his lips. You would send an envoy, and if what you find is not a return, but an awakening, an evolution beyond your reach. The council fell into uneasy murmurs. The implications of those words were staggering. If humanity was truly undergoing some kind of transformation, if the prophecy were correct, they might not be able to stop whatever was coming next. Thrask turned his attention to the data coming in from Earth. The planet, still eerily silent, seemed to be waiting, holding its breath. But for what? We will send a probe, Thrask said firmly, his eyes narrowing. And we will find out what's happening on Earth, whether it's the end of humanity or the beginning of something far worse. The decision to send a probe was made quickly, but as the Variks prepared its mission, the Galactic Council was already feeling the pressure. The Zal, ever the opportunists, saw an opportunity in this chaos. For centuries, they had viewed humanity as an unpredictable yet potentially dangerous species, one that had risen to power too quickly, with too much ambition. The sudden silence, if it was indeed part of a larger plan, could very well be the precursor to humanity's return with abilities far beyond the comprehension of the other races. Admiral Ansel Voss stood aboard the Virith, the Zal flagship, staring out at Earth. His mind churned with thoughts of the humans. They had always been unpredictable, emotional, erratic, and occasionally brilliant. Now, they were gone without explanation. In the vacuum left behind, Voss saw only one possibility: weakness. And where there was weakness, the Zal would seize control. Initiate the scans, Voss ordered, his voice cold and calculating. I want every inch of that planet searched. We cannot afford to leave anything to chance. His flagship loomed large in Earth's orbit, its powerful sensors sweeping over the planet in an exhaustive search. Earth's surface still showed no signs of mass destruction, no signs of catastrophic war, no evidence of a large-scale exodus. The Zal expected to find human infrastructure, shattered cities, abandoned ships, emergency broadcasts, anything that would indicate some kind of natural disaster or military strike. But there was nothing. What are we missing? Voss muttered to himself, his eyes scanning the data. His officers reported anomalies, but they were minor. Disturbances that could be explained by planetary interference or environmental effects. But Earth had been a center of galactic communication for so long that such disturbances should not have been present. There was a force at play here, something that none of them could identify. We're losing power to the auxiliary systems, one of his engineers reported urgently. The navigation grid is malfunctioning. We're drifting. The Virith shuddered violently, as if gripped by an unseen hand, and the crew scrambled to stabilize the ship. Voss's sharp eyes darted to the readouts, where the systems showed nothing but erratic data. Get control of the ship. Now, Voss barked. But it was too late. The Virith lurched again, its engine sputtering as if the very fabric of space around Earth was twisting. A low hum filled the air, growing louder by the second, vibrating through the ship's hull. The Xal officers struggled with the controls, but it was as if the Virenth was being pulled, inexorably, toward Earth. "What's happening?" Voss shouted, gripping his console. "What is this?" "We don't know, sir," the officer replied, panic in their voice. "It's not a gravitational anomaly. It's like something is interfering with our systems." The ship began to move uncontrollably toward Earth's surface. Thrusters firing erratically, the Virenth careened toward the planet below. And the crew could only watch in horror as their flagship tumbled, pulled by forces no one could comprehend. Admiral Voss's mind raced as he realized the truth. Whatever had caused humanity to disappear, whatever had silenced Earth, was far more powerful than anything the Xal had ever encountered. They were being manipulated, and they couldn't fight it. Something on Earth, or perhaps within Earth, was beyond their control. The ship's hull groaned under the strain as it neared the planet's atmosphere, and Voss knew then that the Xal, for all their technology and arrogance, were not the ones in charge of this situation. "We need to get out of here," Voss snapped, his voice hard. "Full reverse. Now." But it was too late. The ship was already too close, the unknown force pulling them faster than they could escape. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, the Virenth broke free from the pull. The hum faded, the ship stabilized. But not before it had veered dangerously close to the surface of Earth, its hull scarred by the turbulence. Voss gripped the edge of his command chair, his heart racing. "Report," he demanded. A stunned officer slowly turned to face him. "Sir, we've sustained significant damage. And there's something else. A faint signal coming from the surface. It's human. But it's not like any transmission we've ever encountered." Voss's lips tightened. "Prepare a landing team. We're going in." The Virenth drifted slowly in orbit, its once pristine hull now marred by the unseen force that had nearly torn it apart. Admiral Ansel Voss stood in the command room, his jaw clenched as he processed the new data. The faint signal that had slipped through the interference was human, unmistakably so. But it was unlike any transmission that Xal had ever encountered. There was no message, no structured communication, just the faintest trace of a pattern, one that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly rhythm. "Prepare a ground team," Voss ordered, his tone sharp. "We're going down." Moments later, a small assault craft, the Daleth, was launched from the Virenth, carrying a team of elite tall soldiers and technicians. Their mission was simple: land, locate the source of the signal, and gather any data they could. Voss had no illusions that this would be easy. The turbulence they had just encountered was only the first warning that Earth, and whatever forces now controlled it, was beyond their understanding. The descent was smooth, but the atmosphere felt unnervingly still. As the shuttle passed through the clouds, the team looked out over the landscape. Lush forests, sprawling plains, and vast oceans. Earth appeared pristine, untouched. Yet there was a profound sense of emptiness, as though the planet was holding its breath. They landed in a dense forest at the edge of a small human settlement, one that appeared completely abandoned. The buildings were intact, the roads clear, but there was no sign of life. No humans, no animals, not even the usual noise of a thriving ecosystem. Lieutenant Eric, a seasoned field commander, led the team through the settlement, his weapon at the ready. "Keep alert," he warned, his voice barely a whisper. "This place is unnatural." The group spread out, scanning every building, every street corner. Their sensors picked up traces of human technology, but it was all dormant, dead. The transmission they were following seemed to originate from a nearby communications tower, one that appeared to be in working order despite the lack of power readings. Voss led the group toward the tower, his mind racing with possibilities. As they approached, the air grew thick with static, unusual interference that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. Then, from the corner of his eye, he caught something that made him freeze. A figure. It wasn't solid, not entirely. It shimmered in and out of view, its outline faint but unmistakably human. It moved swiftly, almost imperceptibly, as if aware of their presence. Voss's heart skipped a beat. It was human, but not human. Its form flickered like a ghost caught between dimensions. "Did you see that?" One of his soldiers whispered, but Voss could only nod, his mind spinning. This wasn't a trick of the light or a glitch in their technology. This was something alive, or at least, something human. The figure vanished as quickly as it had appeared, but its presence lingered in the air, like an echo in the minds of the Xal. Voss motioned for his team to move forward. They reached the tower, but before they could investigate further, another figure appeared, this time in the distance, standing on a hill, looking directly at them. It was a human, or something like one. Their features were blurred, indistinct, but the unmistakable aura of humanity pulsed around them. "Stay calm," Voss said, though his voice betrayed a hint of uncertainty. "We're not alone here." The signal from the tower intensified, its pulse now sensing with the strange figure's movements. The Xal felt an undeniable force tug at them, as if the very air had turned electric with the presence of something other. Voss's mind raced. Was this humanity's doing? Had they achieved something far beyond anything he could comprehend? Were they manipulating space, time, or perhaps consciousness itself? "We need to make contact," Voss ordered, but as his team approached, the figure vanished, leaving only the unsettling silence behind. And for the first time in his life, Admiral Voss felt a creeping fear. What if humanity had already transcended? Admiral Voss stood frozen, staring at the empty hilltop where the human figure had been moments before. His mind, usually sharp and calculating, now spun in confusion. The figure had been so, human yet not. It had flickered, as though caught between this reality and something else, something beyond it. And now, that eerie stillness had returned, as if nothing had ever happened. "Keep your eyes open," Voss ordered, his voice tighter than he intended. His team moved forward, scanning the area. Every instinct in him screamed that they were on the verge of something colossal, something far beyond his understanding. The signal from the tower was still faint, but there was an undeniable pull to it, drawing him closer. "We're almost there," said Lieutenant Eric, his voice low, as the team reached the base of the communications tower. It was a structure of ancient human design, covered in vines and moss, yet still surprisingly intact. The faint hum from the tower intensified, vibrating in the air around them. "We need to shut it down," Voss said. "Whatever is happening here, it's tied to this device." One of the technicians, a young Xal named Rala, approached the control panel, her sharp, multifaceted eyes scanning the interface. "It's unlike anything I've ever seen," she muttered. "It's human technology, yes, but it's been altered. The systems are using." She paused, clearly trying to find the right words. "I can't make sense of it. The power source is otherworldly." Voss stepped closer, his patience wearing thin. "Otherworldly," he snapped. "Explain." Rella hesitated, then looked at him with wide, unnerved eyes. "The power source is fluctuating between dimensions, sir. This device is drawing energy from places that shouldn't exist in our reality, and it's connected to the human figures we've seen." As she spoke, the tower's hum grew louder, its pulse resonating through the ground. The air became charged with a strange energy, and Voss's instincts screamed at him to retreat. But it was too late. With a sudden, violent jolt, the ground beneath their feet trembled. The entire communications tower shuddered as if it was coming to life. A bright light flashed from the apex, blinding them for a moment. When the light dimmed, everything was different. Before them, standing in the middle of the clearing, were more figures. More humans. At least, they looked like humans. Their outlines shimmered, flickered like static on a broken transmission. Yet they radiated with power. A soft glow surrounded them, and the air hummed with an undeniable presence. Voss stepped back, his heart pounding in his chest. These weren't ghosts. These weren't hallucinations. These were humans, or what humanity had become. The figures moved toward them, their footsteps light but purposeful. One of them, a woman, her form barely visible, extended a hand toward the Xal. Her voice, when she spoke, was soft yet filled with ancient weight. "You seek answers," she said, her voice ethereal, like a whisper on the wind. "But you cannot understand." Voss's pulse quickened, his mind struggling to process the surreal reality unfolding before him. "Who? What are you?" he demanded. "We are the awakening," she replied, her form rippling in and out of focus. "We are what humanity has become, what it was always meant to be. You are not ready." The words hit Voss like a blow. What was this? A warning? A threat? He had seen many things in his life, but nothing like this. It was as if the very fabric of reality had torn open, and the humans, whatever they were now, were on the other side. Before he could respond, the figure stepped closer, and the ground beneath their feet shook again. A voice, distant and deep, reverberated through the air, as if coming from the earth itself. "You should leave, Xal. You cannot control what you do not understand. You never could." Voss's mind raced, trying to grasp the meaning of the words. Who was speaking? The woman? The humans? Or was it something more, something older? The ground trembled once again, as if to reinforce the message. With a final, lingering look, the human figures began to fade, vanishing into the ether as quickly as they had appeared. Silence returned to the clearing, but it was a different kind of silence. A heavy, oppressive stillness that pressed in on all sides. Voss looked at his team, his thoughts in disarray. The answer they had been searching for was clear now. Humanity wasn't gone. They had transcended. They had evolved into something that defied all understanding. And they weren't just gone from the galaxy. They were beyond it. "Return to the ship," Voss ordered, his voice grave. "We've learned what we needed to. The humans, or what remains of them, are not to be trifled with." As the Xal team made their way back to the shuttle, Voss could feel the weight of the prophecy pressing down on him. The awakening had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. The descent back to the Virinth was eerily silent. The team moved like shadows, their thoughts consumed by the strange events they had witnessed on Earth. Admiral Voss, still shaken by what he had seen, barely acknowledged his officers as they boarded the shuttle. His mind raced with fragments of words, images, and emotions, things that didn't fit into his understanding of the universe. The humans, or what they had become, were no longer simply part of the galaxy's order. They had transcended it. Their presence had shattered every assumption that Xal held about power, evolution, and even the very fabric of reality itself. Voss's mind kept returning to that one message: you cannot control what you do not understand. When the shuttle docked with the Virinth, Voss was the first to step off, his steps heavy with the weight of his thoughts. He headed straight for the bridge, where the crew awaited his orders. But there was no immediate need for commands. The Virinth had already begun receiving new data, strange, incomprehensible signals that flooded their systems in waves. "Admiral, we're picking up transmissions," Rella, the technician, said, her voice tense. "But they're not normal. The energy signatures are unlike anything we've ever encountered. They're coming from Earth, directly from the planet's core." Voss's eyes narrowed. The core. That was where the humans had drawn their power from, he realized. It wasn't just technology that they had altered. They had tapped into the very essence of the planet itself. Earth had become a source of something. Something far older, far more powerful than any civilization had ever harnessed before. "Send all data to the Council," Voss ordered, his voice hard. "We need to alert them. The human awakening is not a threat to any single race. It's a galactic event." As the signals continued to pour in, the crew of the Virinth watched in awe as the data revealed new, impossible realities. Earth's surface was now a dynamic, living entity, an organism stretching out across space and time. The human figures they had encountered were not just beings from Earth. They were emissaries of a new consciousness that now spread outward like ripples in a pond, touching everything in its path. "We've been blind," Voss murmured, more to himself than anyone else. The humans were always the key. Their rapid growth, their unrelenting curiosity, it was always leading them to this awakening. In the hours that followed, the Virenth sent its findings to the Galactic Council, but Voss knew it was only a matter of time before others would come to Earth. The Nari, the Threxians, the Zal, every species would want a piece of what was happening. Earth's silence had been the spark, but the awakening was the fire. As the council gathered to discuss the new revelations, a new message arrived, this time not from Earth, but from the human figures themselves. The transmission was clear now, without interference. "We are the first," the voice echoed, calm and soothing, yet filled with an overwhelming sense of presence. "You are the last to understand. Do not come to Earth. You will only witness what you cannot change." The message sent a ripple of unease through the room, but there was something more, something deeper in the tone. A warning, a promise. Voss turned away from the message, his mind clouded with thoughts of what the future held. Humanity had not simply vanished. They had ascended. And now, as the rest of the galaxy stood on the brink of a new era, there was no going back. The galaxy, for all its power and intelligence, was no longer in control. "We've been the rulers of the galaxy for too long," Voss said softly, his voice barely audible. "Now, we are the ones who must learn." The message from Earth reverberated through the Galactic Council like a death knell. "Do not come to Earth. You will only witness what you cannot change." Voss had expected resistance from the other races, fear, greed, anger, but he hadn't anticipated the deep, unsettling silence that followed. The Nari representative, Captain Istakora, was the first to break the quiet, her voice cold but thoughtful. "What does it mean?" she asked, the question echoing in the minds of all present. "What is this awakening? We've never encountered anything like this." Admiral Voss, still processing the implications of the human transformation, shook his head slowly. "We are witnessing the birth of something beyond our comprehension. The humans were once a species like any other, but now they are a force, a consciousness that transcends time and space." The Xal, long known for their arrogance and desire for dominance, were unnervingly quiet. Voss could see the tension in their eyes, the realization dawning on them that their long-held belief in their supremacy was crumbling before their eyes. The Threxians, too, were no longer certain. For the first time in millennia, the galaxy's old powers were unsure of their place in the cosmos. The holographic meeting continued, but the mood had shifted. Instead of arguments, there was only deep unease. For centuries, the various species had fought for dominance, seeking to bend the galaxy to their will. Now, with humanity's awakening, that struggle seemed irrelevant. The humans had become something far greater than any race could hope to control, and they were no longer interested in the galaxy's petty squabbles. Suddenly, the space above Earth seemed less like the cradle of civilization, and more like the threshold to a vast, unfathomable void. The humans had unlocked something the galaxy had never seen before. They were not the same as they once were. They were no longer bound by physical limitations or the constraints of time. The signal from Earth had already begun to spread throughout the galaxy, a faint but undeniable pulse that reached into the farthest corners of space. The old powers had been disrupted. And then, as if answering the Council's unspoken fears, a new message arrived. This one was not directed at any one race, but at the galaxy as a whole. "We have already seen the end of your cycle," the message said. "We are the beginning of the next. Join us, or leave us in peace. The choice is yours." The words settled like a weight in the hearts of every council member. The humans were not threatening them. They were offering them something, a chance to evolve, to join them in a new cosmic order, or to leave them to their own path, whatever that might be. Voss, his mind heavy with the burden of this new reality, turned away from the message. There's nothing left for us to control. The galaxy will have to find its own way forward. We must adapt, or we will be left behind. As the council dispersed, the silence of Earth echoed through the galaxy. The humans, once mere mortals, had ascended to a higher state of being, one that no one, not even the most ancient races, could fully grasp. The age of humanity's dominance had passed, but a new era was beginning. The galaxy was no longer a place of endless conflict and conquest. It was a place of transformation, of change, and perhaps, for the first time, of peace. For the first time in eons, the stars felt quiet.